But just because I want to return to this point, because I think all of us want to know, actually. I think most of us know what casting directors do, but Donna and Amy, maybe you can tell us, what is it that an executive casting director would do, like a vice president of casting at a studio? And what is your relationship to the actor and to the casting director? I think that's an interesting point for the audience.
Well,
Okay.
we actually cast the casting directors. So we had to know many different casting directors and kind of figure out which casting director would go with which director, would work well with projects. Sometimes directors had people that they absolutely loved and had to work with. But very often, especially with first-time directors, and at Disney we actually had quite a few first-time directors, we had to help them select casting directors. So we would do that. We also very often attach talent before the movie actually gets cast. Because part of getting a picture to get a green light, you need some talent attached to it. When we were doing Flight Plan, originally it was going to be a man, and then we couldn't get the right man for it, so we ended up casting Jodie Foster. So she was someone we attached before we actually, Deb Aquila did the casting for the film.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and it's really was our job to stay on top of who is, the hottest talent, up and coming people. We did, I'm sure you did this at HBO too, but we did multiple lists, constantly checking availabilities, and really sort of having our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the entertainment business.
So everything that Donna just said. And then the other thing that we did a lot of that up and coming talent too. The finger on the pulse thing was big. Studios expect their talent executives to know everything before everybody else knows it. So it was our jobs to have really good relationships with agents, with other casting directors, with people in the business to find out, everybody's gonna hear about the actor who booked the big job. It was our job to know who tested against them, who got called back but didn't get it, and keep your eye on those people around the people who were, because that's the next wave, to know who's coming over from London, or who's popping, in some other country that you need to be aware of, because eventually they're gonna make their way over, and it was our job to introduce those people to our executives. And then and I've noticed this is different at every studio. Every studio is more or less either completely kind of hands off with their casting people, or really micromanaging, and everything in between. So when I was at HBO, when we started, our department, because it was expected of us, was extremely micromanaging over our casting people, over our directors, over our producers. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying it was expected of us, and so we were really hands-on. So we got to experience a lot more of the day-to-day casting than some of the casting executives who experience the other spectrum, where they hire a casting director, they hire a producer and director, and they kind of oversee the way I think it was intended. You trust the people you hire, and you kind of give input and stuff like that. And so depending on what studio and what studio executive you talk to, they're gonna have some experience anywhere in that spectrum. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It really depended on who was running the studio, and also who was the head of casting.
Right. And for us, what we did a lot of times too was, because our stuff was a lot of low budget, believe it or not, they gave us like 10 cents to make things. It was really frustrating, because of course then we had to pay you 5 cents. That wasn't very nice. But oftentimes, if our casting director was based in New York or based in London or whatever, then we would do the physical casting sessions for them in LA. So that's, I'm sure you probably did. So
Right.